Hi, I'm Carol Wilson, Editor-at-Large for Light Reading, and I'm here with Ray Watson, the VP of Technology for Masergy. Ray, thanks for joining me here today.
It's great to be here, Carol.
So Masergy has been very aggressive in deploying NFV. I know you guys were very early in deploying software-based services, what we now call software-defined networking. But you've also been very aggressive in deploying NFV. Why is that?
Well, actually, all of the things that we do at Masergy, including the amount of aggressiveness that we've been pursuing in FV, are really ultimately about solving customer problems. So when we look at enterprise networks globally, our first and foremost objective is always, what is the customer's desired business outcome?
Okay.
And that naturally flows into solving for layer 7, the application layer, way prior to even thinking about the lower layers of the OSI model. So we've been pursuing this aggressively because we saw a need in the marketplace for our global customers to be able to have agility and rapid response. And that's the big promise of network function virtualization is to do those things.
Okay, so you're dealing with, your engineers are dealing with enterprises globally. What are some of the big trends they're hearing from those customers, and how has NFV addressed those issues?
That's a great question. So when we talk to our global customers, and we're a very heavy engineering focused company, but the things that we constantly hear about are first and foremost, globalization is a very, very big part of it. Primarily that we live in a very, very small world. Most companies are operating 24 hours a day on all time zones, and they really want that exact same customer experience no matter whether they're in China or Australia or Omaha, Nebraska, or even Chicago, I guess I should say. And they want that exact same Ethernet experience at all those places. So NFV actually brings a lot of that ubiquitous and that same type of customer experience. But what's driving the customers is the desire to move many more things to the cloud from an application standpoint. And then security is also something that our customers are constantly wanting to talk about because the threats have evolved so much, even in the last 12 months, that folks really want to have an understanding of a comprehensive solution that isn't just IDS or IPS, but also addresses every aspect of security around advanced persistent threats.
Okay, and how does NFV helping you address some of those concerns?
Well, the biggest way that NFV is helping us address those concerns is it gives us the ability to very rapidly deploy solutions for customers. So a classic use case is we have a customer that has locations in Japan that they suddenly realize they need a firewall, and we can real-time deploy that firewall image literally within minutes from a central location. It can be verified, it can be configured, and it can be pushed out to those devices, and the customer can start using it immediately. Okay. Another example or use case that we hear a lot is around customer self-service around provisioning as well. So many times a company acquires another company, and unfortunately the IT folks are the last to know, and they need some type of service like today. And if the customer does have access to some type of broadband internet connection, they can actually self-provision an IPsec tunnel that gets them into the full mesh. So we think the promise of network function virtualization is multifaceted. It gives the customers a lot more agility, a lot more responsiveness. And the one thing that you didn't hear me mention is really about the cost savings, because we believe that the cost savings is somewhat a table stakes, but it shouldn't be the primary driver. It should be ultimately about solving those problems at the application layer first, and the cost is just a nice additional benefit.
But in those scenarios you described, you're doing all that without rolling a truck, without drop shipping equipment, without having somebody on site to configure things. So you're basically doing this in a whole different way from the way you've had to do it in the past.
Correct. So the pure play NFV, meaning the premise-based virtualized services that we're now deploying all over the world today, is the third part in a three-part solution set that we provide to customers depending on their needs. Okay. We have traditional managed equipment, whether that's layer 3 routers or firewalls. We have cloud-based firewalls, including virtual CE in the MPLS nomenclature. That's a virtualized customer edge router. And then more recently, we also have this service where we can deploy pure NFV in the customer's prem, push it from a central location in order to do either routing or firewalling. Now, most of our customers actually will deploy a combination of all three. At some locations, traditionally, they're larger offices or data centers. They're still very much enamored with having high availability, dual boxes, dual fiber paths, dual power, all of the things that you would expect in a very highly redundant data center environment.
Okay.
At some of their much smaller locations, they may choose to elect to have cloud-based firewall or cloud-based router or both. And then in a lot of the branches, they may be doing the pure play NFV. The way that we approach it is completely modularized, but it's always driven by what it is the customer is trying to accomplish from a desired business outcome.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. What are some of the lessons you've learned from your early deployments of SDN and NFV?
I think the biggest lesson is that ultimately this is the way that networks should be provided today cannot be based on speeds and feeds. You can't simply get a spreadsheet of locations and the size of the access circuits, whether those are T1s or E1s, and kind of go backwards from there. That's a very 1990s way of approaching network design and network solutions. Today, it really is about what is the customer trying to accomplish. Is it productivity gains? Is it enabling bring your own device initiatives? Is it moving and consolidating data centers? And from there, you can go the other direction in order to design all of those Lego pieces or the modular parts of the solution that can actually bring about a holistic piece. Now, we also believe very adamantly that this isn't something that you do as part of an RFP and then you walk away for 3 years. The network solution must be iterative. It must be constantly updated. Those Visio diagrams need to be shared documents with the customer because it is a collaborative environment and it's an organic network that has to be able to grow, adapt, and change.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then when you're looking at the characteristics that are going to define, when you're providing essentially a wide area network and you're moving to software-defined wide area networks, driven by this need to support the applications that your customers have, what are some of the characteristics that are going to define that software-based WAN?
So the characteristics that define the software-defined wide area network really are about scalability, which in a really simplified definition is to be able to go from something really, really small to something really, really big without making any functional changes to the structures of there. Scalability is a big part. Elasticity, which is really about being able to make bandwidth changes yourself, to either self-provision or use APIs to make changes based on time of day or network behaviors or network parameters such as utilization, et cetera. That's a really big part. And then openness. So you have to be RFC compliant so that customers, if they so choose, can intermingle solutions from multiple disparate vendors and know that it's simply going to work. So the beautiful parts of these standards is that you're guaranteed that BGP will function, that the full meshing will, and especially quality of service. The last point, and the one that we see a lot of, is really what I would consider to be the hybridization of wide area networks. And that is, there used to be this concept of private and public, and there was a really clear line. It was so simple as to say, I can look at an IP address and say, oh, that must be the private side, and that must be the public side, whether it was an RFC 1918 NAT address or not.
Right.
Those kind of concepts have gotten so blurry because all wide area network deployments today have to have some component of public and some component of private, and there's really not a real clear demarcation. The best example of this is how many global customers have chosen to use the public internet as their failover for their MPLS, but they also want to utilize that bandwidth on a day-to-day basis as well. So the big characteristics for the software-defined wide area networks are really about adaptability, scalability, and hybridization, if I can use that word.
I think so, absolutely. Okay, good. Thanks for being here with me today.
It was my pleasure, and it's great to be here.